breaking news. The Tennessee Titans are making waves, and not everyone agrees with their decision. A young wide receiver, once seen as a lock for the roster, might be on the chopping block. Fans are stunned, experts are divided, and the clock is ticking. Could the Titans be making a short-sighted mistake that will come back to haunt them? Stay tuned, because what I'm about to reveal will have every Titans fan talking. Well, folks, it looks like I was wrong, and the Tennessee Titans are preparing to cut Xavier Restrepo. Honestly, I believe that would be a huge mistake, and today I'm going to explain exactly why. Plus, I'll break down who I believe actually makes the team as final roster decisions close in. Before we jump into the latest news, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to turn on the bell icon so you never miss a breaking Titans update. Now, let's move on to today's story. Titans fans, roster cut day is here, and that means it's time for my final 53-man roster prediction. On offense, there's one decision that really stands out: the possibility of cutting Xavier Restrepo. And while some may see this as just another roster move, I think it's the wrong call. The Titans look ready to keep 7 wide receivers, but surprisingly, Restrepo isn't one of them. Now, I'll admit I thought he was a lock. I even went bold a few weeks ago, saying Restrepo would absolutely find his way onto this roster. And maybe, just maybe, I'll end up being wrong. But if the Titans move on from him, I don't think they're right either. Here's the issue. Restrepo may not be the most polished punt returner like James Proche, and he's not the biggest or fastest option like Van Jefferson. But what he brings is something the Titans desperately need: a strong connection with the quarterback and the potential to grow into a reliable playmaker. Cutting him now feels incredibly short-sighted, especially for a team in the middle of a rebuild. Instead, the Titans look set to keep names like Proche, Oliver, and Jefferson. And years from now, fans could be looking back asking, why did we let go of Xavier Restrepo just to hang on to those guys? But here's the frustrating part: when you dig into this roster, it's clear the numbers don't add up. Honestly, I struggled just to find 53 names I actually wanted to keep. And if we're being real, I don't think the Titans are thrilled with some of these choices either. That's exactly why I'd rather see Tennessee keep 8 wide receivers and find a way to keep Xavier Restrepo around. Unfortunately, I don't think that's the route they'll take, which makes this whole situation even tougher to accept. Now let's talk about who does make the cut. No surprises at the top: Calvin Ridley, Van Jefferson, Tyler Lockett, Elio Manor, and Chim DK. Then you've got Bryce Oliver and James Proche, with Proche sliding in because of one thing: special teams. The Titans can't afford another year of disaster in that phase of the game, so keeping a reliable punt returner feels non-negotiable. But here's the wrinkle. A recent report from Paul Kaharski suggested that Chim DK might actually open the year as the team's punt returner. And if that's the case, what are we doing here? If Chim DK is handling punts, then James Proche is left as the 7th best wide receiver with no clear role. Keeping him over Restrepo makes zero sense. Kickoff return duties? Please, that role is far easier to fill than punt return, and it's nowhere near as valuable. Punt return is dangerous, unpredictable, and requires elite focus. If Proche isn't the guy there, then why keep him? At that point, Restrepo is the smarter choice, not just because of his upside as a receiver, but also because not every wideout is even active on game day. Think about it. You've got 53 men on the roster, but only 46 or 48 suit up. If Proche is inactive, not contributing on special teams, and not your future, then his spot is wasted. Restrepo, even as an inactive, makes more sense because he can grow into a bigger role. That's why this decision stings. If the Titans are serious about building for the future, then cutting Xavier Restrepo to keep James Proche is a mistake. Of course, the best-case scenario is Restrepo landing on the practice squad if he clears waivers, but even that carries risk. Another team could swoop in, and the Titans might regret ever letting him go. If Xavier Restrepo does end up being cut, I'd expect Jaquan Jackson and Matt Landers to land on the practice squad, assuming Landers gets healthy soon. But here's where things get interesting. The Titans hold the number 1 waiver claim spot. That means once other teams start trimming their rosters, Tennessee will have first dibs on players hitting the market. Because of that, making a 53-man projection feels like trying to write in sand. Sure, I'll lay out my 27 offensive players for now, but the truth is, several of these names may not survive long. The Titans could easily bring in 5 to 7 new faces from other teams, and those additions will bump current guys off the roster. That's the tricky part about predicting cuts. What you see today might not look anything like the final roster a week from now. It's a moving puzzle, and the Titans' waiver position gives them more power to reshape their depth chart than most teams. Now, with that in mind, let's shift to one of the spots that's been hit hardest by injuries, running back. This position, more than any other, has created a major numbers problem for the Titans. The real complication at running back comes down to Todd Spears' injury. There are whispers he could start the season on injured reserve, which would sideline him for at least 4 games. If that happens, the Titans won't have much of a choice. They'd need to keep Julius Chestnut around, even if he's not a long-term answer. Kel Mullings is also dealing with an ankle issue, though thankfully it wasn't a foot injury, which would have been far more serious. A broken foot is what derailed Derrick Henry back in 2021, and the Titans simply can't afford that scenario again. With Mullings expected to be ready for Week 1, the bigger question mark is Spears. When the team first said high ankle sprain, my first thought was 6 to 8 weeks. That's the standard recovery window. Some reports suggested he might be back sooner, but I'm not buying it. If the timeline plays out as expected, placing Spears on IR makes too much sense. And if that happens, things get messy. Mullings would have to slide in as the number 2 behind Tony Pollard, but he isn't ready to carry that load by himself. That means Chestnut sticks as a depth piece, even though his talent level doesn't scream NFL caliber starter. Yes, he's had flashy preseason moments, the hurdle, the 4th down conversion, but relying on him as a real option feels risky. That's why I believe the Titans might end up carrying 4 running backs on the initial roster. If Spears does go to IR, Tennessee almost certainly dips into the waiver wire for another back, someone with more upside than Chestnut. If Spears avoids IR, then Chestnut could easily be the odd man out once those waiver claims come through. Bottom line, running back is one of the most fluid spots on this roster. It could look completely different by the end of the week compared to cut down day. Whether it's Spears' recovery, Mullings' health, or a new addition via waivers, I expect plenty of movement here. And if Chestnut doesn't survive roster cuts, don't be surprised if he finds his way back to the practice squad, a safety net the Titans will probably want to keep in place. That brings us to the tight end room, and honestly, this was one of the hardest groups to sort out. Let's be real, outside of Chigakonkwo and Gunnar Helm, there isn't much to get excited about. The rest of the group feels like placeholders, and I fully expect the Titans to look outside the building once waiver claims begin. In fact, I don't believe Tennessee ever planned on carrying more than 3 tight ends. But with roster uncertainty at wide receiver and running back, the Titans may keep extra bodies here temporarily, knowing some of them won't last past the first wave of roster moves. For my projection, I've got 4 names. Chigakonkwo, the clear starter. Gunnar Helm, a strong blocker, solid depth. David Martin Robinson, probably the best option among the fringe guys. Josh Weil. And here's where it gets tricky. Well, spot feels like it exists just to hold a seat at the table until the Titans find someone better. Same goes for Martin Robinson. Both could easily be released within days of the initial 53 being finalized. They're roster fillers, not long-term solutions. As for Thomas Odukoya, I don't see a path for him to make the team. His value has always been tied to the international pathway exemption, which gives the Titans an extra practice squad spot. That's useful from a numbers standpoint, but it doesn't change the fact that his skill set doesn't measure up at the NFL level. He's a strong, physical blocker, but the lack of versatility has always kept him on the outside looking in. In the end, the Titans' tight end group is thin. Outside of Chig and Helm, there isn't a true difference maker, and I'd be shocked if the front office doesn't add another option once waiver claims open up. You know those moments in sports when a player is just there? Not really changing the game, not making much impact, but hanging on because of circumstance? That's how I see Thomas Odukoya. Thanks to the international exemption, I believe he'll land on the Titans practice squad again. He'll be around, he'll be available if needed, but realistically, I don't think he's ever been a real candidate to crack the final 53. So with him out of the picture, I'm settling on the Titans keeping 4 tight ends in the initial cut: Chigakonkwo, Gunnar Helm, David Martin Robinson, and Josh Weil. But here's the key, I don't think both Weil and Martin Robinson are here for the long haul. To me, they feel more like placeholders, and if the Titans spot a better tight end on waivers, one or both could be gone within days. Well, in particular feels like the most vulnerable. That puts the tally at 7 wide receivers, 4 running backs, and 4 tight ends. That's 15 spots on offense so far, and now we turn to the trenches, the offensive line. I've always said it, you win or lose up front. If you don't invest in your offensive line, everything else falls apart. And for this roster build, I'm going heavy there, 10 offensive linemen. Let's start with the obvious, the starting 5, Dan Moore at left tackle, Peter Skoronski at left guard, Lloyd Cushenberry, who's trending in the right direction for week 1, locking down the middle, veteran Kevin Zeitler at right guard, and J.C. Lamb at right tackle. Those are your core. Behind them, depth is everything. Corey Levin has been the steady backup at center all offseason, so he's locked in. Rookie Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State has shown enough in preseason to earn his spot as well. And then there's Blake Hance, a versatile lineman who can cover 4 positions across the line. That kind of flexibility, combined with his past experience in this system, makes him invaluable. Finally, I've got 2 more tackles rounding out the group, Oli Udoh and John Ajuko. Udoh, in my eyes, is the true swing tackle. When Lamb sat out in preseason, Udoh stepped right in and played both sides. That reliability is exactly what the Titans need from their depth pieces. So there it is, 10 offensive linemen, a deep, versatile group designed to protect the quarterback and anchor this offense.